EPARTRADE is a great company. I've worked with them for like 20 plus years at PRI. We have Steve presenting here. Hello, guys.
Excellent. I see Steve. Hello. Hello.
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
And, I'm sorry about your loss this year with Richard.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so are we. It's a tough one, definitely tough. But even though he's gone, his chair still stays at the head of the table.
Perfect.
Good. Good.
Well, and same with us with John. You know, he stays in our video and he stays in the spirit with us, and so we'll run a video after your session, and you'll see John Kilroy is there as well. He's still part of what we do, and he's with us every day.
Yeah.
So Tony and Steve, you're in good hands with Joe.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Thanks, Judy.
Gentlemen. Thank you so much. Thank you, Francis. Thank you, Judy. Hello, everyone. My name is Joe Costello. Call me WFO Joe on Twitter and Instagram. And I spent a lot of time at the NHRA. And so these guys, the parts and pieces that they work with on a regular basis is something that is just all over the place where I am. If you have questions, we're going to ask you to use the chat section. And feel free to put something up there. I'm not going to be able to come up with every perfect question for these guys because there are so many different products that they make, but I'm very excited about it. But Tony and Steve, let's talk about Big M, because it was you know, in the NHRA pit area, this man was loved. Championships with Jim Yates and the Coughlin family, the outpouring of just, you know, sadness, let's call it what it was tremendous. And that's from people in the pit area. For you guys who work on a regular basis, it must just be terrible. So I would like to talk a little bit about Richard, and Michigan Motorsports Hall of Famer, so involved in the evolution of the parts and pieces, cylinder heads, blocks, manifolds that have enabled our sport to advance the way that it has, like without his forethinking. You know, maybe drag racing doesn't look like what it does. Cylinder heads on Kenny Bernstein's first 300-mile-per-hour run, and the list goes on and on. But ultimately, you worked with him as a man, as a person, as a mentor. Tell us a little bit about Dick Maskin.
Well, and we can get into that, but we actually have a little video for everybody to show. And I think you guys have it all.
Let's do it
up here. And
No one has ever gone quicker. No one has ever gone faster. Kenny Bernstein.
Unbelievable.
300 miles an hour.
My name's Gordon Hahn. I'm a manufacturing manager here at DART. I've been here since I started with Dave in 1980, and I'm responsible for programming all the machines, the process. Right now I'm standing in front of our Op1 machine. It does all the qualifying for all of our blocks. Everything starts out here. We qualify the blocks, machining the ends, and prep them for the datum points for Op2.
My name's Joe Solar. I'm the cylinder head production supervisor here at DART Machinery. I've been here 2 years. I come from an engine builder background. I own my own shop for 15 years and worked at some high-end race engine shops here in the Detroit metro area. One thing I like about working at DART is we get to work with several different types of cylinder heads from Fords, Chevys, big blocks, LSs, and we're constantly trying to develop those heads, make things better for our customers and for the race engine builder.
Hi, I'm Scott. I've been working here at DART for 35 years. I'm the block supervisor in charge of everything that goes through the block department. Why I think DART stands out is consistency and how accurate our blocks are compared to what's out there on the market. But it's great to have it here in the United States, so everything's looking up.
Hi, my name is Jeff Lake. I work here at Dart Machinery. I've been going on 13 years now here in the SHP department. It's where we do a lot of block preps for our customers. What sets us apart from everybody else is we really know how to hone. We've got an SP20, it's a CNC hone. We check all the bores with the profilometer and to reassure that we have the correct surface finish for today's ring technology. And ring seal is first and foremost in the performance of any engine that you put together.
Hi, I'm Mark Mickey. I'm the driver of Jason Carter's 78 Malibu. We currently run the car in Pro 275. This car still holds the RVW mile-an-hour record, 221 miles an hour. We utilize a big block Chevrolet, 540 cubic inches. We utilize a DART billet block. Really, the DART block changed our program around. It's a great product. The service, the durability of this thing is second to none. We beat the crap out of it. You know, we run almost 90 pounds of boost in these motors.
Amazing, amazing, the performance world and some of those photographs, right? Like from the video of Bernstein going 300 to Mark Mickey, what he does in the 8th mile in such a heavy car, just amazing, guys.
Yeah, it really is. And you know, you touched on it a little bit about Richard and how he, you know, is a friend of all the aftermarket, all the companies, all the racers. You know, not a lot of people knew Richard like Tony and I have, and there's a lot of people in the industry that have worked here, but Tony worked with Richard in the Pro Stock division for 15, 16 years.
Yeah, since '99, I worked with him in the engine room and with development on not just the Pro Stock stuff, but the product we sell on a daily basis.
And it's just when you grow up watching these guys race and you grow up listening to them, and then you grow up using their product, and then you come to work and you're face to face with the man every day, it's definitely surreal, you know. And with his passing, it took us all by surprise. It wasn't something that, you know, the sold out 3 years ago to race winning brands and then ended up passing away. It's not something that you know you like, but get that it happens. Actually, and Tony and I were talking a little bit ago. We got some stories, some really good stories on Richard and how he's helped the aftermarket. And the one thing that we both remembered, PRI, when it was in Orlando, I want to say it was in 2006 or 2007, where we used to have to come down the escalators. Well, when we came down the escalator, the GM booth, the massive GM booth was right in front of us. And that's the year that GM actually had all their crate engines on display there. And Richard saw that, and we were all kind of just, you know, walking around, and he called us all over, and we stood in the middle of their booth and listen to him talk about how these crate engines are really going to affect the performance aftermarket. And not only for us on the heads, blocks, and manifolds, but also for the crankshaft companies, the piston companies, the connecting rod, gasket companies, everything. So he said at that point in time, that's the day that the SHP block was born. He went after and he said, this is it. We're going to go after, we're going to continue. We're going to make a block. We're going to change it just so slightly so the oil pan manufacturers have a play in it. So that the front covers manufacturers have a play in it. Everybody's going to get a piece of this block. And that's what Richard did. He always kept all the performance aftermarket in mind when he came out with something new. He didn't want to just create something and have you turn to us and buy everything from us. He knew that we couldn't do it all, but he did know that if we came out with something that had a little bit of a tweak over the OE, then everybody gets a piece of that pie.
Tremendous. No, a visionary. And I have no doubt that you guys are going to forge forward and continue to have great successes from here on out. And that's why we're here to talk, right? Like, I know there's a lot of positive things in the pipeline that we're going to talk about, but now it's almost as if, and I want you to speak on this. And by the way, feel free to drop as many stories as you'd like. You know, we've got time here today, you know, from back in the day or now, lessons learned especially. But now I'm sure you're doing it with the idea of making him proud.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we will want to keep his legacy alive. Definitely.
Well, I have a story from, because I was always in the engine room with him, so my friendship with him was more on a technical basis. He used to speak a lot about during the early 70s when he was racing the AMCs, how they would cut a head in half and add another head on top of it and weld it all back together, and all the problems it created, but the power it actually helped them make. And I think that's where he learned that he couldn't just think inside the box. He had to think outside of the box. He even spoke of, you know, because they moved the port over and they had to make their own billet rocker arms when nobody made that stuff back then. It's like, wow, today that's even a big venture. And they were doing this stuff in the early middle 70s. And that's where he got his drive. It's like, I gotta be better. I gotta be better. I gotta be better.
Amazing. Amazing. And, you know, like hearing those stories, and I spend a fair amount of time talking to engine builders, and that's it, like how to think outside the box and come up with the next something. But to do that in the 70s, right? To cut a cylinder head.
Yeah.
I don't even know how you would do that.
Well, and they were cast iron on top of it.
Yeah, they're right.
Yeah.
They would brace them together, and what a nightmare.
Yeah.
Well, thank goodness we have the technology that we do. Not that I'm doing it, but for those that are. So let's advance the conversation a little bit. But if anything triggers, if a story or something related, drop it in. People want to talk about it, and you know, great success with the in pro stock over the years, and really forcing the sport forward without someone doing what he did to give you the heart. You need the canvas to paint on, right? It's as simple as that. And without a great canvas, these great engine builders wouldn't have been able to do what they have done. But let's talk about the challenges that you guys have had over the past couple of years, like the world has had, the pandemic, and everybody kind of figured, in my opinion, things wrong at the start of the pandemic. Like they thought, oh my gosh, we're not going to be able to do anything. And that was totally wrong for the automotive enthusiast. No, you're going to have time to do everything. And all of a sudden, everybody went into their garages and they opened up their hoods and they tackled projects that they never thought that they would have time to tackle. And parts flew off the shelves and people got busy. Was that reflected in your situation as well?
Oh, absolutely. When the pandemic hit and we all got the stay-at-home order, we went from 104 employees in our building down to 30. And we were still running. We had a skeleton crew, and obviously we did like everybody else in the industry. We cut POs, backed off on POs. We backed off on employees. We backed off on trying to keep everybody safe inside the building. We didn't want anybody to get sick. We didn't want anybody to pass away, and that was our biggest concern. About a month into it, when the orders started flowing in, and I mean, it was like somebody just turned on a water spigot. And it was crazy because we're sitting there shrugging our shoulders saying, where, why, how, this is crazy. This can't be happening. And it hasn't stopped since. And it really has affected us as far as trying to keep up with production. And we're getting employees back. We're still struggling just like everybody else in this industry, outside supply chain. They're having issues with employees, and if they have issues with employees, it trickles down to us. And then unfortunately it trickles down to the racer and down to the end user and down to the engine builder, warehouse, whoever. But we're working. We actually have some plans in place, and we got some good policies, and that light that's at the end of the tunnel, we actually can see a light now. Before it was complete darkness. But that light that we can see, we know that it's the end of the tunnel and it's not a train coming towards us. It's getting there. It's been really challenging, really tough, to dig out of this. But like you said, nobody saw the fact that, no, I'm sitting at home, so I'm going to go out and work on my car.
Right.
That's crazy.
But and yet it is true, and we've seen it in so many different areas of our motorsport community. But it makes sense, right? Like when you step back and you think about it, if everyone's got to stay home, what are they going to do? The automotive enthusiast is going to use the time wisely. These are the doers and builders and makers, and they want to be hands-on. And why do they have that car anyway? And they attacked it, and that's great news. So what on that thought process, you guys are importing or supply chain, what raw materials, like give us an idea of how you were able to overcome some of the challenges. Everybody wants, there's not a lot of people overseas to create, everybody's dealing with a pandemic situation. You worked some things out, things are getting better. We know the ports are now open 24/7, and we hear from like retailers that they're getting stuff in, and now things are going well. But in the middle of it, did you have to get creative to get the materials that you needed to build your parts?
Well, on the import side of it, we don't import anything. Any of our castings are all here domestically in the Midwest. We had, unfortunately, right after the pandemic ended and the stay at home, everybody was able to go back to work. Our aluminum foundry down in Ohio that we've used for 25 years had a little accident where part of the roof of the building actually exploded and blew off. And that was at the end of May. And it was in a part of the building where the core room was located. So all the cores were built in that room. So unfortunately, we couldn't get any cylinder heads, any small block, big block, aluminum cylinder heads, or any of our big block or small block blocks out of that building for at least 4 months. Luckily, we had enough in-house to where we could manufacture and we can, fill some of the orders. But that 4 months was tough not having anything come in the door. And we did get creative. We did take some of our tooling and shipped it off to a couple other foundries. But it's funny, tooling at one foundry doesn't work at another foundry. It's all, everybody has to have all their customized whatevers. It's just crazy. You think about if you make a pizza, everybody can make the pizza the same way. No, not on the aluminum foundry side of it. So we ran into some struggles, some issues there, but we actually got it all figured out, and castings are rolling in the building now, and we should be in good shape. Unfortunately, it's just the orders and the backlog and the racers and the builders, and nothing has stopped. Nobody's taken a step back and said, you know what, I can wait. It's everybody wants their stuff, and we're working through it. We'll get there.
No waiting for racers. That's just the way it is. And but that's the nature of the people. So it's interesting that it was more of a kind of a unique circumstance that slowed you guys down, but you're back up to speed now, and that's great. But at the same time, you have to advance your products as well. So I'm sure you've got some new products that you're putting out there. How has that been, balancing the backlog and also working on advancing your technology, and what kind of new products are you pushing out there?
Well, and I'll turn that over to Tony here in a second. He can tell you on some of the stuff that we're working on. But on the new products, typically on a normal, non-COVID, non-whatever, let's just go back to 2017, 2018, to come out and develop a new product from start to finish. It's typically anywhere from 6 months to about a year and a half, depending on what the product is, from start to finish. With everything that's going on currently, again, with supply chain and employees and engineering and everything in the world, we're pushing products out now as far as due dates, a year and a half to 2 years. That's how long it's taken us to work on some of this. And one of the things that we can show you here, we actually have a little PowerPoint presentation on our new Hemi Gen 3 block. That block actually was introduced in the thought process, and this was the last project that Richard worked on 2 years ago. And it will be introduced here shortly, and we are going to have production hopefully after the first of the year. But I'll let Tony talk about some of the stuff that he's actually worked on here.
Well, as you were saying, during the actual COVID deal, there was a point in time when I was one of the first ones to come back to the shop, and another employee, and we were just the two of us running production cylinder heads. So it was just two people trying to kick out as many heads as we could on a daily basis. And then they started bringing more and more employees back to work. And that let me start to spend a little more time on doing some development stuff, because there was some stuff that I had started before the whole shutdown began. And I started to be able to spend more and more time to get back into it. And now it's looking more like I'm heading towards what's going to be the old normal for spending a lot of time on doing some stuff. But we've got 3 or 4 things out or coming up that actually are quite impressive. I've done a new LS7 port, because everybody's always, the drag racers wanted something that was a little bit better than what we already made, because the 380 port we had was more, or the 280 port, I'm sorry, was more of a street or a circle track type cylinder head. Wasn't a high lift head. It was meant for less than 800 lift. And the drag racers were like, we need something that flows more air at the higher lifts. So I actually spent some time and finished up a 305cc port with a 250 intake valve in it. A 55-degree seat, something for that 850, 900, 950 lift group of guys, drag race stuff. Been spinning, we worked on the LS 10-degree piece a little bit. We're coming up with a smaller intake port on that one, more suited for the street guy. So we're going from race back to street on that product, because the current race piece is a little too much for the street. It's more oriented towards, the 900 1-inch lift area. So we need to tame it down and get the cross-sectional shrunk back up on it. Something else that I just started working on about 6 months ago. You're all familiar with the Big Chief 2. I'm coming up with a Big Chief 3. It will still be a spread port head, but it's going to be available in billet and cast. Billet initially. I've been able to move the valves around and put bigger valves in it, 250-inch 750s or inch 875s. I'm sorry, and I thought outside the box a little bit on this one, because we always had the Dart X lifter pattern for the block for that cylinder head, and it straightened out the push rods, but we still had to use a Z rocker. And I always hated the Z rocker, because I remember a day on the dyno and Pro Stock when we actually discovered, we made a rocker bar that got rid of the Z rocker and actually put a straight rocker on it at an angle. And I remember the power gains we made doing that. It's like, well, if we're going to do this Big Chief 3 thing, why don't we do this too? So I actually did make a rocker bar to get straight rockers on it, and moved left the Dart X lifter pattern, but now we got the straight rockers, the straight push rods, and I moved the push rods away from the port to get more room to do more with the port. So once again, trying to think like Richard outside of the box and come up with a better piece. And I'm working with an exhaust port on that particular head that's more oriented towards the power adder classes, you know, especially like the Outlaw 632s and stuff like that, where I've done some work with some of the other engine builders, and we've got a pretty good clue what these exhaust ports want to do with the power adder cars. So I actually went the next step further with this one, and it really shows some huge gains, huge. So quite happy with that. In the meantime, we've done an LS1 6-bolt pattern cylinder head. So a lot of guys have been asking for that, because I guess like the street power adder guys like that LS1 platform. So we've actually come up with the cylinder head. There's actually one right behind me right here. So that's the kind of stuff that we've actually been able to do during COVID, and since, you know, till now. The Big Chief 3 thing is not complete yet, but it's getting very close. It's in engineering at this point.
Excellent, excellent. I want to remind everybody out there, if you've got a question for Steve or Tony about you know, this business Dart, their future, what they've done, certain parts, pieces, why they don't know Pontiac stuff. Just kidding, guys. Put your question in the chat section up there. I joke around, I'm a Pontiac guy, and for so many years, like, there was nothing available, right? And we would look longingly at like Dart blocks and you know, think, oh my gosh, you Chevy guys have everything, right? But now some people have actually gotten involved in that. So I was just kidding around. But folks, yeah, definitely put your questions in the chat section. Guys, what did you want to do with that PowerPoint? Did you want to delve?
A real quick story before we get to the PowerPoint here, but Tony just reminded me, this is a Maskin story. So it popped into my head. But when Tony was talking about that straight rocker bar that he was doing on the Big Chief 2 head. This has got to go back 10 years ago now. Richard was building engines for a pro stock team, and one day I walked into the shop, and Richard and Bob Glidden was the crew chief of the team, but Richard and Bob Glidden were standing there looking at the rocker bar, looking at the geometry of the valve train, the whole thing. First of all, I'm taken back by Bob Glidden, right? You know, it's like, well, this is Bob Glidden standing in Dart, and then there's Richard Maskin standing next to him, and these two powerhouses are, you know, putting their heads together trying to figure out this valve train. Well, and I don't know if anybody out there knows, but Bob Glidden is a fond, he loves parrots. And I'm not talking the little tiny, you know, parakeets. These are big, giant macaw type parrots, and he used to bring them to the plant. And the day I walked out there, I walked over, and again, my jaws dropped when Bob and Richard are talking. And then I overheard one of the guys, the team members, asking what happened to the lug nuts off of the car. You know, where are the lug nuts? I can't find them. I put them right here. Where are the lug nuts? And so everybody's looking around. Well, next thing you know, this parrot is like walking across the floor, and we're all standing there and we're watching this parrot walk, and it picked up another lug nut and it carried it back to where he squirreled all the other ones away. And so Richard turned to Bob and said, hey, listen, you got to do something with that parrot. So he picked it up, and the parrot talked. It talked and it sang, and it was all this weird stuff. And he put it in our conference room. Well, our conference room was right outside of all of the phone room. And so now we have the door closed, but now this parrot's in there talking and singing like loud. It was like Adele in there singing. It was crazy. So I'm like, and it was disturbing our phones. So I had to go back, and I walked outside and I said, hey, Maskin, the parrot's in there singing in the conference room. You know, and Richard really didn't have facial expressions, but he just, you know, we'd always say, all right, I'll take care of it. So he walked over to Bob. Bob went and got the parrot, and he ended up putting it in Richard's office, which is in the front of the building, shut the door. Well, by the time Richard and everybody got done, walked in his office, this parrot, it was in there singing and talking and doing everything, but it ended up pooping all over Maskin's desk. He opened the door. You know, it was one of those things. There was a lot of expletives that were being said, and it was just kind of funny because, you know, we heard them walk in there and say all this stuff, and we're like, oh no, that, you know, we're going to see feathers just come poof right out the door. You know, but there's another one that just popped in. But this PowerPoint,
Well,
go ahead.
for those of you out there who signed up for Industry Week on EPARTRADE, I know you expected a lot of great information, but I highly doubt you expected a story about Dick Maskin, Bob Glidden, and a parrot.
All right.
That's what you get when you sign up to these kind of things. All right, Steve, go ahead.
What we have, actually, this PowerPoint presentation, it's on the new Gen 3 Hemi block that it's actually gonna be at the show next week. But well, we just wanted to talk a little bit on some of the changes that we've done and some of the things that we've, again, Richard worked on this program. This was the last project that he worked on before he actually went and officially retired. And just like this is I guess a solid drawing of what the block looks like and some of the things. So let me see if I can do this without screwing it up. So we'll go here. I think it's this one here. And let's see here.
Here we go.
Oops.
We're on slide 8 of 8.
Yeah, let's see. I gotta. Let's see. How do I go back?
There you go.
All right. Here we go. All right, so you can see this, right?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's
so
fine.
Basically, this is our new Hemi block right here. It's the Gen 3 platform. It's kind of hard to see on that because that's kind of like a blueprint drawing on the block on the right hand side. But just to give you an update on some of the things that we're doing with this block, it is a cast iron block. It does weigh 235 pounds. It's a heavy monster. But what we've done on this block is we've actually taken, no different than all the other blocks that we've done forever. We've taken it and we've made upgrades to it. And we've made some slight tweaks and changes, again, keeping the aftermarket involved so they can continue to come out with new products also. And the blue lines that you see there, that's actually the oiling system in the block. On a standard Hemi block that's this platform, that main oil gallery hole that you see that's going up at an angle, that actually comes straight over from the oil filter and from the oil pump right above the main cap. So what we did is we actually angled that thing up and got the main oil gallery hole down from up where the crankshaft is, moved it up to where, again, it's above the crank and it's close to where all of the other oil gallery holes are as far as the lifter valley or the lifter oil gallery holes. And this allows you to put a bigger stroke in the crank. So you can actually put a 4/100 stroke in these blocks. And again, we turn it into a priority main oiling system. So it oils all the mains first. Hemis work a little different. They don't go up to the cam and then up to the push rods and oil the lifters, and then they actually kind of work backwards where it runs up and then it runs down the push rods into the lifters. So with this block, you can actually oil it either way. So if you want to do a traditional oiling like it's standard Hemi, that actually goes up through the cylinder heads, it'll go up through the into the push rods, down the push rods into the lifters, or you can go the opposite to where it actually goes up through the lifters, up through the push rods and then oils the rockers. We've also extended the cylinder barrels on these blocks. We moved them down farther into the blocks, 375 thousandths or 3/8 of an inch. And what this does, again, when you put a bigger stroke in the engine, that way it gives you more piston support. So now you got another 3/8 of an inch where that piston's not going to come hanging out the back of the bottom of the block. We've increased the deck thickness and made blind head bolt holes. None of the head bolt holes actually go into water. The reason we did all this, again, it makes the deck, the block more rigid. So, you heard that guy on that video where he's putting 90 pounds of boost into that billet block. Obviously 90 pounds of boost in this isn't going to work too well, but it allows you to put some kind of boost or some kind of power additive to this block. The other cool thing is that it is Siamese bore. So you can actually, with the bore spacing of the Gen 3 Hemi, you can actually take that bore up to 4-inch, 250 thousandths, and still have 200 thousand cylinder wall thickness between the bores and from the bore to the water. So it's pretty cool, pretty badass. The other thing that we've done is we put billet steel main caps on all the mains. There's no side bolting. It's not. We took our LS concept and we developed it into this Hemi concept. We are using ARP main studs. This block actually can take, like our LS block, you can put the standard stroke, which is 2,570, or not stroke, journal size. You can also do on the LS block, you can do a 2,750, which is the Ford size. This block can also do the same thing. Again, if we didn't take that into consideration, yeah, you'd be selling a bunch of Hemi cranks, but now there's an opportunity to make a Hemi style crankshaft with a 2,750 journal size.
Yeah, Cleveland Ford.
Cleveland Ford, there you go. Let's see what else. It does have the option for VVT or non-VVT, depending on how the engine builder orders it. The lifter bore sizes in this block, they do come standard at 842, but it does have the capability of putting a 937 lifter bore in it. You can actually even bush it, and I think Jessel has a set of lifters out there that are keyway, that you could put a 937 keyway bushing lifter into this block. The last thing that we did, which Richard always kept in mind, is to keep engines happy, you do have to keep them cool. So what we did is we increased the water jacket volume in the block. On the outside of this block and all of our blocks, you can see they're kind of scalloped where you can see the cylinder bore. Well, the reason we do that is, again, it allows up to about 30% more cooling in the block than what we had in the past. So this, and there's a couple other things that we've changed on the block, but the majority of the stuff that we're showing you here is that's what Richard is always pushed on us, is to make this thing. Yeah, again, you tweak it, you change it just a little bit to help everybody else, but we're going to make it a lot stronger and a lot better than what the OE is. Not saying that the OE is bad, but this is just again, it's an aftermarket performance part. That's it.
That makes sense. No, well, back to the painting and the canvas, engine builders, they want to be creative. They want to try things. They want to be able to expand. And it seems like you have given them that, right? You've given them the freedom to think. There's that outside the box once again with the stroke and bore and giving them options.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's kind of what we have to keep all that into consideration. And majority of the people that are here at DART, we're all racers. If it's from drag racing to circle racing to boat racing to the midgets or anything, there's a lot of racers in this building, and Tony being one of them. There's a lot of things that we are geared towards the drag racing side of the business, because that's what Richard was involved in. But we also take into consideration everybody else. I'm on the phone all day, every day, talking to engine builders and asking different questions of, hey, what could we do to make this part? What would you like to see on this part? Some of it's easy to do. Some of it does cost money, and we're probably not going to do it if it's way outside the realm. But we like to think outside the box. We're not, we don't like being held down.
Let's expand a little bit on the engine builders. Like, what are you hearing from your customers and your clients? What they're happy with, and what do they ask of you? And the reputation of the company is so sterling that as I mentioned before, the products are bar none. But what do they ask you for? What are some of the things that you're hearing from engine builders, both what's going on now and for the future? Like, what are things that you think are on the horizon based on what you're hearing?
Well, go, yeah.
Well, like I was saying earlier, that LS7, the 305 port, that actually was based off of telephone conversations. Like, I was talking to a couple of engine builders, and they're wanting to build these drag race LS engines. It's like, well, you want to try one of our heads? And they're like, nah, don't move any air upstairs. It's like, do you want me to make you something that does? Yeah, you make me something that flows air upstairs, and we'll buy it. So that's kind of where it came from, is listening to the customer what they wanted to do.
And engine builders, what on my side of the business, Obviously, in today's world, it's when am I going to get my parts? I place this order, when am I going to get it? And our lead times, unfortunately, with again, outside suppliers, outside vendors, it's tough. It's tough to really predict that. Everybody is working hard to get answers, and not just answers, but good ETAs, good lead times from our suppliers. And it's making it tough on us, but everything that you see sitting on this table, and actually in that billet block in the back corner there, that was all based on us talking to engine builders. That billet block in the corner, that's a 5.3 bore space block that we've made a couple hundred of them in the last 10 years for different engine builders. And every single one of them is different. The head bolt pattern's different, the lifter bore pattern's different, the cam height is different. Everything is different from every engine builder that's out there.
Yeah, the liners are even different from engine builder to engine builder. I mean, it's completely different. It's their box, not ours.
Yeah, we're just making the shiny parts in it.
But you give them the options though, and that's
Yes.
what they come back. They all have their own spin that they want to try, things they want to do, things that they believe work for them based on 10 other things that they know that I don't know what it is, and you guys accommodate that.
Correct. We do it for a lot of engine builders that are out there that where our production blocks nowadays are actually our upgrades. I would say it's about 85% of our business. And that could be a cam bore upgrade, a lifter bore upgrade. I know, again, moving head bolt holes on the cylinder head side of it. We do a couple different tweaks. We got private label heads that we do for some big name engine builders out there, big name racers that are just for them that we do here internally. And again, this is all based on Richard and the quality and everything that he basically beat into us over the years, and we got to get it right the first time.
Exactly. So let's put an action step to this for the folks out there. And I'm kind of interested because you guys have done such a great job with marketing. Like, this is one of the major brands that people think of when you think, blocks and cylinder heads, fact, right? But, what are some markets that you're maybe reaching out to? And I'd like to make sure everybody knows the website and contact information. If they're an engine builder that wants to source some parts from you guys, or someone with a question about maybe a different design that they've been working on that is outside the realm of what we've discussed, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you guys and find out more information about Dart?
Well, the best thing to do is jump on our website. It's real easy. It's dartheads.com. In the contact section of the website, there actually is an email, and it is contact@dartheads.com. I get all the incoming emails. So if they have any questions or any concerns, they can send it there and reach out to us. And it's funny because we do get a lot of new inquiries weekly on, hey, you guys should look at this and look at that. Even we might not answer that email, but we do take every single email, we do take every single inquiry, and we put it on the table and we look at it. Now it's a little different, with Dart being sold, and Richard would look at it and say, yeah, we're not doing that. Now we look at it, we take it into consideration. We do market research on that product, and a couple of markets that we're actually getting into. For us, it's out of our norm. We're actually looking at doing some sport compact blocks and cylinder heads, and the sport compact world. That's again, I drive a Volkswagen. I don't know what they do performance wise, but we have some really cool things where these guys are talking to us and telling us that these little 4-cylinder, little 6-cylinder engines are putting out 1,500, 1,600 horsepower, and it's like, it blows our mind. It's like, no, that engine in the back corner there, that puts out 1,500 horsepower, not a 4-cylinder. So that is actually coming out, and we're working on some really cool projects on that, and hope to have some stuff on that we can talk about in mid next year.
Excellent. No, and you know what? To me, that's what's intriguing. That there's just been such a a revolution in performance that is not limited to any one, brand or one style of engine. It's just like everything has gone rapid fire. I've seen crazy things like that 2JZ engine by Toyota. Like, oh my gosh, crazy stuff is happening. And how are they making so much power? But in the end, they're limited. Like they run into the limitations that Richard ran into years ago. Like the OE stuff can only be so good because they're pumping it out for, hundreds of thousands of people. And an engineering shop like you guys can figure things out and make it better, make it more powerful, make it more rigid so that the people who really want to lean on it can do so.
Yes.
Yeah, and we have, the domestic market, the OE domestic market, they've actually, looked at, and I like to say they looked at Dart and said, you know what, we're going to make it more difficult for them to get into our backyard. And some of the products that they came out with, GM, Ford, and Chrysler, it's pretty good right out of the box. It's pretty damn good. But there's also guys like Tony that could sit there and say, yeah, it's good, but let's make these changes here and let's do this. And again, that's what Richard has always taught us to, don't look at it and see, you can say, yeah, it's great, but there's always room for improvement.
Yeah, how much better can it be? Let's find out.
Yeah.
That was always the thought. Let's find out.
See, and that's great, Tony. Like, and that obviously comes from your background in pro stock, where you guys are fighting the fight on a weekly basis and looking for a half a horsepower or something like that. There's never going to be a product that's good enough for that kind of mentality.
Never. I'm sure till this day, it's still never good enough.
Amazing. So where's this, where do you think it's going, guys? Like, I'd like you to look forward a little bit. We already mentioned some future products, but are we at the pinnacle of performance? We talked to LS, obviously, Ford and Chrysler, you just showed us the new Hemi. Everybody's got their performance stuff out there. And, the average street car is way faster than anyone could have imagined. Where's it going? What's next?
We got a lot of stuff on the board in the back. For us, on the cylinder head side of it, we do have some upgrades and some improvements on our existing products that we're going to be doing. And that's first and foremost. Some of our chambers and our programs on the heads just need to be updated. So you are going to see some running changes, and we will introduce them when we make, everything is all based on airflow out there. And airflow is great. But Tony and actually Dart were one of the first manufacturers to have a wet flow bench. And Tony actually, and speaking of the wet flow, you should touch a little bit on that because it's pretty interesting. The wet flow bench compared to a dry flow bench. And we do know that we have competition out there. There's a lot of cylinder head companies out there, but there's two that have this wet flow bench that's still in production and still being used today. So
yeah,
Tony, definitely go into that, Tony, but I'm stalling for Steve. Steve, you got, before we part ways, which we're almost time, we do have one question.
Sure.
But we got to get one more Big M story from you. So rack your brain. This question.
Okay.
Well, the wet flow bench thing, I'll tell you, that was a learning curve that took forever to learn anything about. And it actually, once again, it stemmed from a pro stock thing. I was working on some of the first symmetrical port stuff that we were doing, the DRCE 2 stuff that we were finishing up on. And I had worked on some ports that on the dry bench were just killer. And I was cheating, and I knew I was doing it. I was cheating the short turn, but I could get it to hang on just to the lift on the dry bench. And I thought, wow, this thing is going to be huge on the dyno. He's going to be so happy about this. We put it on the motor, ran on the dyno. The thing's down 40 horsepower. And I remember him looking at me, and I won't even say what he used to say. And he's like, well, we need to learn from this because the dry bench is telling you it's a better head. He knew somebody at Roush. He says, take it down to Roush. They've got this. It was an old World War II carburetor machine is what it was. and they had adapted it to be able to flow cylinder heads with fuel in the ports. So I went down there, got to know them guys really well, and they taught me how to run the machine. And as soon as I put fuel in that airstream from the baseline that we were running, oh man, it stood out like a sore thumb. It's like, why would you ever bolt this thing to a motor? So he got on the phone with Joe Mandello, and he was custom making flow benches. And Joe says, yeah, we'll custom make you a bench. What do you want? And he, the guy that actually built it for him was Lloyd, I believe his name. He called me on the phone and said, what would you like? It's like, well, I want something that'll flow 55 inches of depression. I want something that'll actually give me the correct air fuel ratio. I want to be able to measure the pounds per hour of fuel and at the same time tell me what CFM is. He says, no problem. So when the machine showed up and got it up and running, and it was really a learning curve. We started with like the Platinum Series Pro 1 small block. That was actually the first pieces that we actually played with. And if you to this day, if you take the old Pro 1 small block, dry flow it, the Pro 1 Platinum, and you dry flow it, they flow the same. They flow the same. You put it on the dyno, it's 25 horsepower with a small hydraulic cam. Done it many, many, many times. People say, oh, you're lying. I'll show it to you. And what it contributed to is the fact that when the fuel is in the airstream, the amount of fuel or amount of air that actually goes through the port is considerably different. Considerably. It's like 52, 53% of what you see dry. You know, depending on how efficient the cylinder is to begin with. But what you also get to learn is, where does the fuel travel? Where in the port? How does it enter the chamber? And what does it do once it's in the bore? Then you know, the learning curve, you learn from that. You learn what it likes, what it don't like. And then what I would typically do is, after I like something on the wet bench, I'd go back to the dry bench. And then I would probe the port, check my air speeds, and things were considerably different than what I'd always thought was correct. So you start teaching yourself stuff on the dry bench from what you know worked on the wet bench, and you dynoed it. So now when I do development work, I'll start on the dry bench, and I'll start measuring these points. It's like, well, I know that works, and I know that don't work. So, you know, then you get, you know, 75% of the way done. Then you go back to the wet bench. It's like, yeah, I just confirmed, you know, that what I thought was right on the dry bench works on the wet bench. Let's go to the dyno. So yeah, the wet bench was a huge, huge learning curve. And I'll tell you right now, I bet I don't know 20% of the knowledge there is to be known off that. I'll guarantee you, I don't know 20% of the knowledge that I could know. I don't think anybody in the industry knows more than that.
That's great. That means there's a lot of room to grow.
Yeah, you were asking about room, and you know, where can we grow? There's one of the arenas. You know, and now we're changing. We went from carburation, and that's a completely different conversation we could have, and wet flow bench, to multi-port fuel injection. That throws fuel in a whole different direction. And now we're direct injection. You know, so we need to adapt to all of these scenarios. You know, even the direct injection on the wet flow bench, there's things that could be learned. You know, I want to do it. I've never done it. I want to do it. I want to do that. I want to make that test. I bet it's cool.
I bet it is. It is. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Francisca and Judy are back. A quick comment from the chat section. So happy with my recent intake purchase from the box, top quality. Everybody seems happy. And Paul wants to know about the 572 GM crate engine. If you guys are going to be doing anything for that, I just want to make sure I get that question.
On the crate engine, well, we have blocks, we have cylinder heads, we have intake manifold that we currently have that you can interchange. You know, for us specifically going after a certain platform, you know, that engine right there, that big block Chevy, you know, our big block Chevy cylinder heads are again gonna outperform what they currently offer. Our block is going to be a lot stronger. And, you know, on the 572, it's
yeah, I think that's based off the Gen 6 big block. So
yeah,
our Pro 1s will bolt right here.
Everything will bolt right onto it.
So that technology is already in our books. You can buy it now.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, we'll see you in a week or so. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. Thanks, Judy. Thanks, Francis. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks for joining
Appreciate it.
us.
Thank you
Not a
very much.
problem.
Tony.
Thank you very much for
Hey,
being with
and-
us.
Hey,
Stay
Joe,
with
if you're-
us. Oh, sorry.
Joe, if you're at the shows, catch up with me. I'll tell you a real funny story. My first experience with Richard Maskin. This goes back
Excellent.
to 1990, and here I am 30 years later. I'm working. for-
Okay, no, I'll be there. I'm
Music
definitely
there.
gonna track you guys down. Definitely,
Perfect.
definitely.
The concept for EPARTRADE is basically, in my opinion, there's a big hole in the internet. So the internet started many years ago, but there's never been an online business community for racers on the World Wide Web. The need for EPARTRADE is actually quite obvious. Basically, people in the business of auto racing need a place online to hang out and get their problems solved.
It's extremely simple for a buyer or for a supplier to interact on the platform. The first thing you need to do is sign in, which is free. And the second thing is, when you see a product that you're interested in, all you need to do is click on request more information. If it's a company, you click on request more information, and then from there, it is forwarded directly to the buyer or to the supplier.
You can go to epartrade.com, you become part of a community of businesses in racing, and it makes sourcing products much easier than just on the internet or using Google.
At EPARTRADE, there is no e-commerce. It's literally a connection just like at a trade show. So now, any time of the year, a buyer could reach out to a supplier through an email.
More than that, it's a place to go just to keep current every day. So it's a good place to start your workday in your racing business or in your offices of your professional race team. And you know you're current when it comes to new technology, industry news, technical papers, technical videos, all of that and more. We're not looking for a million hits per day. All we want is people who are really the volume buyers of racing products in the racing industry to be part of the little world of EPARTRADE. We have racing businesses participating from around the world. So you get suppliers from around the world, you get buyers from around the world.
EPARTRADE really eliminates having to travel, closing down your shop. Now you have a place to showcase globally your racing product and technology.
There are two types of people, racers and everyone else. Racer Magazine is for those who believe that racing is a way of life. Racer embodies the excellence that defines a sport driven by passion, courage, and ingenuity. Get 1 year of both Racer's print and digital edition for only $39 with instant access to our entire digital issue archive. Subscribe now at info.racer.com.